All right, let's do this. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to another glorious edition of the Uper Farmer Cigar Deck Talks. Out on the deck, huh? Sun as bright can be. A little windy, a little cold. Not bad, though. Definitely like being out here, like shooting these things out in the natures. What are we smoking tonight? We are smoking the Punch Diablo. Nice little cigar, dark, of course, as you kind of figure with the Diablo type cigar. Oh, and happy EMS week, by the way. Getting a little ahead of myself here. Happy EMS week, ladies and gentlemen. God bless every one of you who's active on the rig, and thank you for your service if you were on the rig. We have the Velvet Villain Imperial Porter. What company is it? It's Lansing made. Lansing, Michigan. Uh-oh, this is just all sorts of irony now. I'll explain fully why here in a little bit. Let's take a look at that, huh? Well, a little bit of a head. Dark beer. Let's take a taste. Interesting take on a porter. Not bad, not bad. All right, can you guess what tonight's topic is? EMS topic. Diablo. We're doing the Velvet Villain. Lansing. Lansing was actually a mistake. I didn't. It was a happy coincidence, shall we say? Let's talk about the evil downsides of EMS. I'm saving for another video the stress of EMS, or the tough calls. I think we have a nice big cigar and a couple of beers actually and talk about the tough calls. I'm trying to get a friend of mine to join me on the podcast to talk about the tough calls. But that's not really the topic of tonight's video. Tonight is the evils of EMS. You get into this profession because you want to help people, you want to save lives. Most people, some get in because they're told it'll be a easy way to make a paycheck, to make a living. Those people will tap out soon. It is not that easy to make a living. We don't get paid great. And it's not an easy life to live being in EMS. But that's not what I'm talking about even. Bureaucracy, laws, conflicts of interest, dealing with doctors, medical controls, legislation, policies and procedures, the evils of EMS. So if you do or don't know, EMS is a very new, big air quotes, new idea of public service. Fire has been around since the police have been around for centuries. Fire in this country, I remember correctly, was actually a branch of the military. Law enforcement, of course, every community had law enforcement. You had your marshals, you had your deputies, people, the sheriff would come in and deputize someone. But EMS is only, as a service, as a profession, has only been around for about 60-ish years. Started around the 1960s when the U.S. changed strategies. Instead of having these field hospitals, they sent medics out with each patrol during the Vietnam War. Sorry about the history lesson here, but it kind of gives you an idea of how little or how short this profession's been around. So anyway, they came home, these medics, these vets came home and wanted to go work on the ambulance. They figured they could use their military training skills, and they were told to just meat wagon, throw a body in the back and drive fast. Throughout the years, though, they were able to get it, so now we have what EMS is today. IVs and medications and defibrillations and diagnostic equipment and differential diagnoses, all sorts of fun stuff. But because it's so new, we don't know what to do with it. Some people firmly believe it should just be a sector of fire, and in many states and countries and cities and counties and rural areas it is. It's just an extension of fire. Others believe it should be public. It should be state, municipal, and federal run. We should just be extensions of a city or county government. While others believe it should be for-profit. And we do see all those models. We see the models where the hook to fire. We see the models where they're for-profit. We see the ones that are governmental run. And then we see volunteers. It's a big soupy mix. And we don't know what to do with it. So sometimes we'll switch where a regulating body is. Sometimes we'll be governed by the same people fire is governed by. Sometimes we'll be governed by nurses and doctors departments, the Department of Health and Human Services. Believe it or not, EMS actually falls under the DOT, the Department of Transportation. We got dropped on them because they figure, hey, they got to drive on the roads. We own the roads, so we are going to control EMS. So yeah, next time you call an ambulance, remember, they were mostly regulated by the Department of Transportation. They set the protocols, they set the rules, they set the educational standards. Figure that one out. But sadly, because we're in such a gray area, you have a lot of political and grandstanding. You have people who want to bend and break the rules because they are so loosey-goosey. You have people who want to use EMS as a foothold into state or federal government positions where they can level up into state jobs because the experience and training is so new. It wasn't until just recently you could even get a degree in EMS. And then it meant something. That's the big push right now. They're trying to push people, or push EMS to become a profession like they did nursing, where you have to have your BA or your BSN, your Bachelor's in Nursing Science. They're trying to push EMS that way. You have to have a bachelor's and an associate's degree to practice. That's topics for a whole nother video, but the result of it has become very political. You have med control boards that look over the shoulders of providers, set up protocols. So you leave your educational hub and your training could be immense. I was trained in some surgical procedures. I was trained about antibiotics and basic suturings and using the staples and whatnot. How to insert catheters, all sorts of interesting procedures, NG tubes. The first service I worked for barely had all the ACLS, the American or ACLS, Advanced Cardiac Life Support drugs. There were a couple of the ACLS drugs they wouldn't let us have. One document told us if you go back to the days where you had to call in to ask to put on oxygen or put on the EKG or start an IV, that was his dream, was to have EMS so restricted. I've talked about at the beginning of this series that if I let my license lapse, after 3 months of it being lapsed, I have to redo the entire course again. Unlike other professions, doctors, nursing, dentistry, all you have to do is sometimes you just redo some CEs, you got your license back. Other times you have to retake your certification exam, non-EMS. Very political. It's unfortunate that we do kind of have the short end of the stick, and we're treated as such. I've had a lot of the governmental branches that I've worked with for EMS, or under EMS when I was in EMS, especially in the rural areas, treat you very poorly, forget you exist. We'll give grants and funding for fire and police, although the police is falling by the wayside, unfortunately, and kind of forget that EMS is there. We're seeing this now with these tactical EMS they're toting. We're going to send medics into warm zones. So if you're an active shooter, usually we stay in the green zone. There's no threat of us being shot. And they're like, no, let's push them into the warm zones where there's a chance the violence might come towards us. It's a horrible, horrible plan. You're going to have a lot of dead medics, a lot of dead EMTs, because one, we're not trained in that type of stuff, and one weekend seminar or whatnot won't do it. That will not prepare these guys. Plus, they won't be given the equipment or funding to do continual training or buy good bulletproof vests. They haven't. I've seen hazmat, EMS hazmat crews and special response crews. Now, if they're privately funded, yeah, they might have more money for training. And by private, I don't mean like a private ambulance service. I mean they work for like an industrial, private industry. So when I worked in mining, they were big about training. They gave me a training budget to work with the guys on and keep making sure they're fully trained and ready to go. Most of these places, though, if they're doing these specialty units, you're lucky if you get training once a year in it. These tactical medics, they'll train them at first. They'll train every month, and then they'll forget about it. They'll cut budgets. They'll say the state should pay for that, or the Fed should pay for that. So the county or department or company won't, and they won't get trained. They won't do their continuing ed for that tactical stuff. Next thing you know, the event happens and you have a bunch of FNGs again. Disorganization, a bunch of people not able to do the job because we haven't been keeping our training up. We see it time and time again because we don't want to think about EMS. We don't want to think about people getting hurt or dead or dying. So governments don't fund it. It really is unfortunate. I dealt a lot with that politics towards, well, actually the last 10 years. I kind of pivoted to the political end. Dealing with state people who just don't get it. Dealing with county people who don't want to understand it. Trying to appease all sides when you're working with the private industries and the for-profit or the department level. Trying to keep people happy. And all they want to do is war. They just want to fight with each other. It's all about getting your name, right? Getting some letters at the end of your name. Those people always make me angry. Got to add some letters of certification. I'm better than you. There's an old adage, I'm sure you all have heard it, but you actually probably don't know what it means. Those who can do, those who can't teach. Most people use that as a rally call. Well, if you can't do it, then you should become a teacher. That's what the saying means. No, the saying actually comes from times when people had low confidence in the educational system, and they're saying that they're crappy individuals. You should not take someone who can't do it and make them an educator. You should take people who can do it and make them educators. I believe the same with governing bodies. We take these people who haven't touched a patient in years, many years, and make them administrators, make them program directors, make them state officials, make them inspectors. That's not to say they all are. There are quite a few who I've met who run the calls and did the time and became good providers and then wanted to transition into more that management role to help others. But for everyone who served the time and was a good provider, there's 2 to 4 who couldn't cut it, didn't want to leave it, so instead they went into the government side, they went into the management side, the training side even. Now, yes, I'm sure a few of you are like, wait a minute, don't you train people? I do. I'd like to think that I did it. I still study and practice and do some first responding and whatnot. But that argument could be made that I might not be as fit of an instructor as I used to be, and I will listen to that criticism. You can always tell the ones who definitely are not we're not good providers, because you bring that up to them that, you know, if you're an educator, chances are that means you're not a good provider, or you weren't a good provider. And they get offensive, chances are they weren't. My record speaks for itself. I don't care about other people's judgments as me as a paramedic. I know what I did. I know what I'm capable of. I know what I can do. I know my limitations. I know my strengths, and I use those. I know the failings. I know what calls I failed on. I know what calls I stumbled on. But there's a lot of politicking. You can have a good provider who just gets marked. The marked man, they call him. They can be the best provider ever, but they're going to nitpick and find every little wrong thing they've ever done and every reason they can to one-up them or get them in trouble. It's just a thing in EMS. It's in a lot of professions, but EMS is pretty bad with it. I get tired of that bullshit. A lot of good providers, people who knew their stuff, left the profession too early because of that political bullshit. You get that holier-than-thou provider who always ends up QAing reports, reviewing reports, and they'll make a big deal that you didn't get a blood glucose. Well, true story, I did not. The guy got hit by a car, and I was too busy splinting, bandaging, IVing, providing pain medication. I mean, he's alert and orientated ×3, good color, for a car accident, obviously. But yes, you are correct. I did not get a blood glucose. Whoop-de-frickin-do. You have the other ones who, the patient's got a O2 saturation of 99. And just recently this changed. It used to be, well, why didn't you put oxygen on him? Well, his O2 sat's 99, he's breathing fine. No, all patients need oxygen. We now find that actually kills them, and that those of us who are restricting the oxygen, we're saving lives. But you really do have that politicalness. People who really don't have the skills, who are demeaning those who do, trying to make the marked man of people, make fun of people. It's absolute bullshit. As I've talked about, I'm a proud dyslexic. I had true discrimination. While I was, let's see if I can get the color. There we go. I'll do the color there. Get a little better color on this video. I had true discrimination against my dyslexia. I had the classic. Well, we're gonna give you written tests, reading tests before, so you can keep your job. Well, does anyone else have to take them? No. Well, that's discrimination. I'm going to be harder on you than I am on any of the other new recruits. That's discrimination because I have dyslexia. But people are willing to turn a blind eye to it because, well, I don't want someone who can't read treating me. Oh yeah? 20 years of doing it, trust me, no one's ever been like, ooh, he's dyslexic, can I get someone else? Trust me, unless I'm writing you a quick email, you can't tell I'm dyslexic on the road. I can read all the medications. I know what they say. It's not that hard to memorize words, you dumbasses. But we will, it's the demons, the villains. People got to make this job a living hell. A lot of it does come down to people who, they're not medics anymore. They're not EMTs. They're bureaucrats. They're busybodies. They're failures in one regard or another, and they're just trying to one-up everyone. It's a little life lesson for anyone out there who's ever been bullied. The biggest bullies are usually the ones who are the most incompetent, the most embarrassed or shy, or have self-doubt. Remember that. Very rarely are bullies actually competent individuals, whether that's in EMS or any other field. But we give them power. They know the words to say, they know who to tell it to, they know what to do to get someone in trouble, and they're patient enough to wait for you to make a simple mistake and then blow it out of proportion. And I'm sure that's bad in all professions, but EMS just seems to have it worse. And again, I don't know what it is about EMS. We celebrate those assholes. We give them promotions and pretend that what they have to say matters. In truth, they're scared little kids who don't know what they're doing and want to blame everyone else but themselves when they make a mistake. So there you go. Downside of EMS. The demons, the devils, the villains of EMS. And I haven't even talked about the horrific calls you might go on. So I guess that'll be the next video in this EMS series, EMS week. We'll review everything. Really dial down and look in this profession. And should I continue renewing my license? A lot of you out there might be saying, well, you could be the change, right? That's what everyone's saying, be the change. Bullshit. People are too into their BS. It's ingrained in other parts of culture. I've talked about the culture. There's also that I'm better than you culture. And no one wants that to change. They find comfort in it. Anyhow, this video is getting a little dark, a little sad. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of my sunset here. It's turned out to be a pretty good looking one. Weather's turned out to be pretty nice. So I'm going to finish the rest of my villainous beer and my Diablo cigar. So I hope you stay safe out there. Hope you're enjoying this series. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one.